Everyone has 3 centers of intelligence: thinking, feeling, and doing. Everyone uses one center more than the others, and another substantially less than the others. Enneagram triads are formed around which center of intelligence is the most dominant, or how we take in information. There are 3 triads: the gut-anger triad, which are 8s, 9s, and 1s, and they take in information by intuition or by doing. There's the heart-shame triad, 2s, 3s, and 4s, and they take in information through feeling. And finally, there's the head-fear triad, and they are the 5s, 6s, and 7s. They take in information through thinking. Stances are another way of grouping numbers. These are based on which center of intelligence is repressed or non-productive. There are 3 stances: the dependent stance, those are 1s, 2s, and 6s, and they are thinking repressed and present focused. There's the withdrawing stance, 4s, 5s, and 9s, they are doing repressed and they are past focused. And finally, there's the aggressive stance, 3s, 7s, and 8s. They are feelings repressed and future focused. Another part of the Enneagram structure is wings. These mean almost nothing in terms of motivation, but wings are the numbers found on either side of the main number. You can have a big wing, a little wing, no wings, or balanced wings. Most people start in life with one main wing and then add the other wing in the second half of life. Some numbers, like 9s, have balanced wings. You can only have a wing of the numbers that are on each side of your number. For example, a type 2 can have a 1 wing or a 3 wing, but not a 5 wing. Lines are what connects the main numbers to other numbers on the diagram. Each number is connected to 2 other numbers they go to in either stress or insecurity. These are important to learn to grow in health. We need the behaviors of our lines in order to pull us into spaces and behaviors that are healthy for us. Any person can be in a different stage of health or wholeness. Within each number, you can be healthy, average, unhealthy, in excess, or pathological. Most people tend to hang out in average space most often, and the Enneagram teaches to that average space. We tend to know ourselves more by what is wrong with us than by what is right.
We're going to begin our discussion of each type with 8, which seems a little illogical, but it is the beginning of the anger gut triad. So these first 3 we look at will be 8, 9, and 1. Because these 3 are all in the gut anger triad, they are doing dominant. The 8 is called the challenger. 8s are also in the aggressive stance, so they're feeling repressed and their orientation to time is future focused. 8s long to protect themselves and others. They fear being betrayed or being controlled. Their sin is lust. Their wounding message is it's not okay to be vulnerable. And the lost childhood message for an 8 is you will not be betrayed. They like control. In fact, they're generally the boss or will take over when there is a space in leadership. They just control a room. 8s don't actually want to be in charge of you, but they don't want you to be in charge of them. They define themselves by oppositional energy. In fact, they're energized by disagreements. They want their power to be met with power and respect. Those who just go all out, unless they're met with strength, they'll run right over you. They have a need to stand independently. To others, this feels like a need to be against someone or something, but they're just very intense, and in fact, 8s have the most physical energy of any other number.
Enneagram 9s are called the peacemakers. 9s are in the gut anger triad, which means they are doing dominant. But because they are the anchor point of that triad, they're also the furthest removed from that dominant center of intelligence. That means 9s are also in the withdrawing stance, in which they are doing repressed. Their orientation to time is the past. The core longing of a 9 is to have inner stability and to be at peace, and their core fear is being in conflict or being shut out. Their passion or sin is sloth, but that doesn't necessarily mean lazy. It means that 9s have the desire to be unaffected by life, and they have an unwillingness to arise with any vitality. The wounding message of a 9 is that it's not okay to assert yourself, and the lost childhood message or the healing message is that your presence matters. 9s have the least energy of all 9 numbers because they're boundaried both internally and externally. They hold a boundary within to keep conflict out, and they hold a boundary out to keep peace in. They're natural mediators. 9s see 2 sides to everything. It is also the worst part of 9s. Therefore, it takes them a long time to make a decision. That's part of that doing repression for 9s.
1s are called the reformer. They are also in that gut anger triad, so they are doing dominant. In the dependent stance, so they're thinking repressed, and their orientation to time is present focused. Ones long to be good, to be right. They're perfectionists with a need to be perfect or make things right. They fear being corrupt. Their sin is anger, or maybe a better word for ones is resentment. Their wounding message is, it's not okay to make a mistake. And the lost childhood message is, you are good. They struggle with a terrible primal feeling of not being worthy or good enough. And ones have a relentless inner critic that is merciless and never stops. They have an amazing ability, however, to assess everything for improvement. They're driven to correct things based on a high internal standard. Their talk style is teaching that turns into preaching, and ones believe in their ethical or moral superiority. They have very black and white thinking.
Enneagram 2s are the helpers. They are in the heart and shame triad, so they are feeling dominant. They're also in the dependent stance, so they're thinking repressed. They're considered thinking repressed because about 85% of their thinking is about relationships, so it's not always productive thinking. Their orientation to time is the present. 2s long to be appreciated, to be loved, and they fear rejection or being dispensable. The passion or sin of a 2 is pride. It's the inability or the unwillingness to acknowledge one's own needs and suffering while tending to the needs of someone else. 2s believe that they know what other people need and that they're the best ones to give it to them. The wounding message of a 2 is that it's not okay to have needs of your own, but the childhood message or healing message for a 2 is that you are wanted and loved. 2s need to be needed. They are others referenced and peacemakers. Their talk style is help and advice. The unspoken and often subconscious assumption of a 2 is that if they sense and meet your needs, then you'll sense and meet their needs. But others don't sense needs like a 2, so they're left feeling empty and taken for granted. The real catch is that often 2s don't even know themselves what they really need.
The Enneagram 3 is called the achiever. They are also in the heart-shame triad, so they are feeling dominant. Now, as the anchor point of that triad, though, they struggle because they read feelings of a group with great accuracy, but they can't read their own feelings well because they are also in the aggressive stance, which means they're feeling repressed. Their orientation to time is future-focused. 3s long to be admired, successful, and valuable. In fact, they fear being worthless or exposed. Their sin is deceit, and this just means that they will put on different personas for what they believe others need from them. Their wounding message is, it's not okay to have your own feelings and identity. And the lost childhood message is, you are loved for simply being you. They are multitasking, high-energy performers who get things done. They're motivated by external applause, not internal. They're constantly seeking affirmation. They have an ability to adapt presentation to the audience. In fact, they're afraid to drop the image because there may not be anything behind it. They can't imagine that you love them for what's behind the image, for just who they are instead of what they do. 3s like competition for winning and losing. They either want first place or they won't show up.
Enneagram 4s are called the individualists. 4s are in the heart and shame triad, so they are feeling dominant. 4s are their feelings. 4s are also in the withdrawing stance, so they're doing repressed, and their orientation to time is the past. The core longing of a 4 is to be authentic, to be known, and to be loved for those things. Their fear is being insignificant, defective, or unknown. Their passion or sin is envy, but that isn't like, I'm jealous of what you have. It's more of a longing for what other people seem to have that make them complete, happy, or whole. The wounding message of a 4 is that it's not okay to be too functional or too happy, but the lost childhood message or healing message is, you are seen and loved for who you are. 4s have a fear of abandonment in relationships. They are always the tragic victim on the Enneagram. The mood of a 4 changes constantly, sometimes within an hour. 4s experience so much emotion at once that they don't know which ones to choose. 4s crave emotional intensity. Highs are too high and lows are too low, and they re-intensify those feelings through music and memories. 4s are always focused inward.
The Enneagram 5 is called the investigator. They are in the head fear triad, so they are thinking dominant. But they're in the withdrawing stance, so they're doing repressed. Their orientation to time is past focused. 5s long to be capable and competent. They need to perceive or fully understand. They fear being incapable, ignorant, or depleted. Their sin is avarice. This is greed for knowledge and privacy, or hoarding the few necessities that ensure independence. Their wounding message is, it's not okay to be comfortable in the world. And the lost childhood message is, your needs aren't a problem. Their most important priority is independence. They want adequate resources so they don't have to depend on anyone else. But they feel like they don't have enough inner resources. They believe their energy is limited, and it is. Everything they do throughout the day costs them some of that energy that they get for the day. They are in the fear triad, and they want to manage the fear with knowing. So they want predictability. They'd rather observe than participate.
Enneagram 6s are the loyalists. They are in the head and fear triad, so they are thinking dominant. But they're in the dependent stance, so they're also thinking repressed. 6s, as the anchor point of their triad, they use thinking to take in information, but their thinking is non-productive as they process that information. This is usually because 6s have an actual committee in their head that is telling them to always plan for a worst-case scenario. The orientation to time for a 6 is the present. 6s long for security and support, and they are afraid of being without guidance. The passion or sin of a 6 is fear, but it might be better classified as anxiety. Any number can experience fear or anxiety, but a 6 is motivated solely by planning for anxiety. The wounding message of a 6 is that it's not okay to depend on yourself, but the lost childhood message or healing message for a 6 is that you are safe and secure. 6s believe the world is a slippery slope and a big conspiracy theory. Their fear creates doubt, suspicion, and skepticism. 6s manage their fears by planning for worst-case scenarios and then staying vigilant and prepared. They are community-minded. Their values reflect the values of the modern era: home, family, community, and government.
The Enneagram 7 is known as the enthusiast. They are in the head fear triad, so they are thinking dominant. They're in the aggressive stance, so they are feeling repressed, and their orientation to time is future-focused. 7s long to be happy and free of pain. They fear deprivation, being trapped, or being in pain. Their sin or passion is gluttony. Mainly, it's the insatiable desire for more and better to avoid feeling empty, but they never feel like they have enough. Their wounding message is that it's not okay to depend on others for anything. And the lost childhood message is, you will be taken care of. 7s want to savor and anticipate everything. They insist on spontaneity and don't want to be limited. They want to taste everything and always try something new or do something new. 7s are charming, and they can get themselves out of trouble this way. They don't like routine or finishing things often, so they keep a smokescreen of activity going to avoid pain. They have the half range of emotions, which means they turn away from part of life. 7s need to learn that they can feel real pain and be okay.